So, we've had our hands on a Steam Deck for a while now. Now, we put out a before you buy video, a general overview and our opinions, and we really like the device. Even with all of its first generation quirks, we've been having a blast. And now that it's finally starting to show up a bit more and get into more people's hands, for today's video, we're gonna do a sort of update and what we've actually been doing with the thing since we've had it. We've got some dumb stuff and some serious tests, and just some stuff we found ourselves doing the most with it. Some basic stuff, some complicated stuff. So we've got 10 things. Let's get started off with number 10. The first thing we did was upgrade the storage. Now, if you play games, you know how big some of these things can be nowadays. And the largest storage option for the Steam Deck is only 512 gigabytes, which we have, and it's okay, but you might want more. And on the other end, if you have a 64 gig model, the lower end model, you are definitely gonna need more storage. Yes, you can add a micro SD card and games actually have no problem running off of it, but what if you want some of those badass NVMe SSD speeds? Well, you can upgrade the storage, and it's not that hard, but it is a process. First, you need to create a boot drive with SteamOS installed on it. Then comes the actual disassembly of the Steam Deck itself, which is scary. There are some screws on the back that you'll have to remove and then pop off the back plate, and then a plate on the inside, which gives you access to the NVMe drive. Now, after unplugging the battery, because you should never hot swap an SSD, you're technically good to go and put it in. Now, obviously, there's a bit more to it, and our friend Jimmy over at Deck Ready has a detailed step-by-step video you should go check out in the description if this is something you definitely want to do. Now, over at number 9, durability test-wise, we can only go off of our real-world experience. You know, we're not about to drop this thing off of a ledge because they're still not readily available. That's irresponsible. But from using it in the real world, it does stand up to normal abuse fairly well. Like we said in our previous video, the build quality is really good and sturdy plastic, so it doesn't feel too delicate. Now, I did actually drop it once. It slid off my couch and onto a thin carpet over a hardwood floor, and it was totally fine. I did freak out though. But we also just made sure not to baby this thing. Just treat it like an everyday device. I made sure to sometimes just toss it in my regular work bag without the case. And so far, after about a month, no scratches. That being said, don't be like me. Use the actual case the Steam Deck comes with. It's really solid and does a good job protecting. Just after a month, we wish it did have like an additional pocket for an accessory other than just tucking something in behind the grip. We also did a dumb thing that's kind of becoming a stupid tradition here at gameranx, the dirty hand test. Now this time we did it with Dorito and Cheetos dust. This is an extremely heightened version of a real world example. Obviously it's ridiculous, but the Steam Deck did okay. It cleans really easily, it doesn't stain, and it's pretty much what you'd expect. There are just a few crevices that can cause trouble getting stuff out, like don't get it in the speaker ports. Be careful with this thing. You know, even though we said it's not delicate, the intake fan on the back and the exhaust port on the top, you need to be careful around getting stuff in it. It has some protective mesh over it, but it's pretty big. So just kids, don't try this at home. We are dumb. Next, over at number 8, we docked it and used it like a PC for an extended period of time just to see how it would stand the test of time. For gaming, it's basically Steam Big Picture mode, and it works perfectly well with a monitor, a keyboard, and mouse. On using docking accessories, 2 of our 3 docking devices worked perfectly, and Valve seems to be frequently updating capability, at least. Now, moving on from gaming and actually using desktop mode, this version of Linux is completely usable. It takes a minute of getting used to, but if you've used more than one user interface in your life, you'll probably be fine. Sure, like I wasn't getting intense using Photoshop or editing videos, but I spent a whole day like answering emails, using Firefox and Google Chrome, downloading and uploading files, messaging people on Discord, editing some text. I was actually surprised that I forgot I was using a completely different operating system after a while, which is very impressive. Now, it has its limitations, but it's much more capable than you'd probably expected. The Linux community and the support is absolutely killer, and we're reaping the benefits from it now. Now, next at number 7, many PC gamers might own games on platforms other than Steam. Totally normal, and thankfully, Valve doesn't make it impossible to access these games, even if the results and the support may kind of vary. Now, I happen to own a few games on the Epic Games Store, like Sifu, and I wanted to play them. So there are actually 2 different ways to get Epic onto your Steam Deck. The first way is essentially just downloading the Epic Games launcher for Windows and tweaking the executable paths and a couple of other things to get it to launch properly. It's a little bit complicated, but you can get it up and running in a few minutes. But unfortunately, this way is far from perfect. Not every game is going to work properly, and the launcher itself is hard to navigate. This is what I did at first, and I regretted it this way. The heroic option is much better. It's an application you can get from the Discover curation in the Linux desktop mode that allows you to access both Epic games and GOG games. We highly recommend that. Even if that still isn't perfect and not every game you launch from Epic is going to be perfect, it is at least decent and an option, and it's getting better. Next, over at number 6, we really tried whatever we could with the battery because the Steam Deck doesn't have the best battery life. It's something that we were aware of, but there are some things that you can do to save battery life to extend your sessions when you aren't able to charge. Some of it, honestly, is pretty obvious. Lower your screen brightness. You shouldn't have it maxed. Just like any other device, really, the brighter the screen, the more it's going to drain your battery. Another thing you can do is pull up the quick settings menu and enable the system level 30 FPS frame rate cap. Now, yeah, you won't be making use of the 60 Hz display, but you will be able to play your games longer. And thanks to an even newer update, you can also bring it down to 15 frames per second if you want, which might sound stupid at first, but if you think about it, for certain slower paced games, like some indie stuff, some visual novels, or some strategy stuff, it can actually make sense. Now, along with limiting the frame, you can also lower some of the in-game settings to make the game less taxing on the system. There are more intense things you can do, like messing with the base clock speed and setting a new thermal design power, but we think that stuff is better left alone if you aren't completely an expert with what that stuff is. Following the basics like this should be enough to get you some extra battery life. We found ourselves in a couple of positions where we were really squeaking out, and with some settings, we actually were surprised that we were able to get a couple of extra minutes. Overall, if you've read reviews and stuff, the battery is clearly the biggest sticking point of this thing. A lot of people aren't going to buy it for that reason alone, but credit to Valve, they give you a lot of options to really control it and have that battery die more on your terms. Next, over at number 5, there are a bunch of useful shortcuts and hotkeys on the Steam Deck that Valve doesn't always necessarily tell you about all of them up front. But if you hold the Steam button down, it will show a list of different shortcuts that you can access. Now, some of the ones that we think are useful are the Steam button and long pressing B, which will force shut down a game, which is good if it crashes or freezes and it locks up the deck. Steam plus R1 will take a screenshot, and Steam plus left stick up and down will adjust the brightness, which goes back with the battery. You can also hold down the Steam button and use the right stick or right trackpad as a mouse and use L2 and R2 as left and right mouse click. Now, Steam is also updating this stuff all the time. You probably know that you can bring up the keyboard with a shortcut, but more recently now you can bring it up in desktop mode too, which really helps. These are just the shortcuts that we found ourselves using on the daily after using this thing for a month. Now, next, over at number 4, Xbox Game Pass is a pretty good deal, and we think it's something that would have been great on the Steam Deck. And you've been able to kind of access Game Pass since day one, but the handheld controls didn't quite work. But as of a few weeks ago, Microsoft put out a beta for their browser Edge on the Linux App Store, and it supports Xbox Cloud Gaming. So while this isn't like totally Xbox Game Pass on Steam Deck technically, it is a step in the right direction, and we used it, and it's pretty good. We also would love to see an Xbox Game Pass standalone app, though, whether it be through Steam or the Linux App Store. Who knows, but crazier things have happened, so it's possible. Next, over at number 3, we tested out playing some PlayStation games through Remote Play. Now, PS Remote Play's streaming option has been great, and it's only gotten better in recent years. It allows you to stream a game running on your PS4 or PS5 from that to, say, a Vita or a desktop app, and you can do this on Steam Deck too, thanks to an application called Chiaki and a few lines of code and pairing up your PlayStation, and you're good to go. We'll link a great resource on how to do this down in the description as well. Now, obviously, with this and Xbox Cloud streaming, it is streaming, so results are going to vary, but other than that, it works well and the controls pair up fairly nicely. Now at number 2, we tested some emulators. The emulation support on this thing is strong, and it works as simple and as easy as you'd really hope. You can get RetroArch or RetroArch right on the Steam store, just like on your PC, and you can take advantage of that, but you can also go much deeper. On the Discover App Store on desktop mode, there's a whole gaming section and a whole emulation tab where you can get anything from Super Nintendo to Game Boy Advance, DS, Dreamcast, to Dolphin Emulator to play GameCube games, DuckStation for original PlayStation, and even PCSX2. Now, we haven't been able to test all of them yet, but DuckStation and Dolphin have worked well, and it's just as capable as we were hoping. Now over at number 1, there is one thing you have to do when you test every new piece of PC hardware, and I think you know what it is. Just embrace the meme. Let's say it together now. Can it run Crysis? Well, in short, yes. I mean, at least the remastered one, which we tested, yeah, we know it kind of sucks, but if you run that game at medium settings, you can achieve 60 frames per second. And on the smaller display on the Steam Deck, it's pretty good. It's totally playable, even if clearly here with these controls, we're not very good. But if you wanted to play through the whole game, we'd think that this wouldn't be the worst way to play it. We also tried running it on high, and we were getting, 20 to 27 frames per second. It did look good if you sat still and didn't move, but either way, whatever your settings, yes, the Steam Deck can run Crysis. Those are some extra things that we tested and really played around with the Steam Deck. Consider this more of like a review 2.0, an update, or a life with the Steam Deck, whatever you want to call it. If you enjoyed our little overview video, clicking the like button really helps us out. We would definitely appreciate that. But we also just want to hear from you guys. If you got your hands on a Steam Deck, what have you been doing with this thing? Are you not getting one? Is it the battery life? Is it something else? Are you still waiting on your pre-order? Let's talk anything Steam Deck down in the comments below. If you're new, consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.